Chainlink, Ondo, Algorand, Hbar, these assets, they all have something very, very interesting. And I wanted to just break things down in terms of, the altcoin bucket that to me looks very structurally undervalued. And it has a lot to do with institutional adoption. Now, if you've been in crypto, you know this. There are no guaranteed winners, especially in the altcoin market. We're all trying to place our bets. We're all trying to do the best we can and win a couple big ones, right? To wipe out some of the ones that haven't done all that great. But the reason why I like this stack, right, that I mentioned here in the title of this with XRP and Chainlink and Ondo, it's because this stack institutes, special attention, because these are parts of the stack that institutions already touch. And they're also assets, in my opinion, where the token price or coin price, it still lags in the role that they could potentially play longer term, right? So I wanted to get into it, guys, and talk a little bit about some of these particular assets and give you guys a nice little breakdown on why I feel the way I do about these specific assets. And I want to start with Chainlink. This to me is probably the one that is probably the most undervalued, to be honest with you, of the cryptos, here. And I'll put myself right there so you guys can still see the price of the asset. But we're down here like $13 right now. Chainlink is literally like plumbing. And you're probably wondering, what are you talking about, plumbing? It's the plumbing for tokenized RWAs on chain. And why does this matter? Because the institutions care about this. Chainlink is perfectly positioned, in my opinion, around the RWA and tokenized fund areas. And we've already seen, BlackRock's work on tokenized ETFs and the BITUNIX product, and all of this requires what Chainlink has. And that is CCIP, cross-chain interoperability. This is being pitched basically as the router for RWAs and tokenized funds across all the networks, Ethereum, Solana, L2s, etc. And I think this is why Chainlink to me is very, very undervalued. They've done some good things with their tokenomics recently too, and creating a treasury. But if RWAs go from, let's say, 30 billion to multi-trillion, which is what Larry Fink is talking about, the fee volume and network effect just on Chainlink alone on these rails can grow way bigger and much faster than just simple crypto beta, right? So again, with everything, there are risks. I mean, there are competition from some other oracles, but not really. Like, that's the other thing. Chainlink doesn't have a lot of competition in the oracle space. So I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about Ondo now. Ondo's come down to a 565 day low, a yearly low. But what Ondo's doing right now, they're tokenizing short-term U.S. treasuries and cash equivalent strategies, which is their USDY product. And their TVL right now across all their products, 1.6 billion, which is solid. But again, if the RWA space is going from billions to trillions and Ondo's a centerpiece in this, don't we feel as if this is super undervalued? Like, it is up 209% all time still too, something to keep in mind. But it's becoming sort of like the DeFi wrapper around BlackRock, Fidelity, Franklin Templeton. It's making institutional paper usable and composable for DeFi. They're basically expanding to all the major chains, including the XRPL, which we'll talk about XRP next, bringing tokenized treasuries into the Ripple ecosystem. That's what Ondo's doing. And they're linking it to the RLUSD stablecoin. So to me, again, another play that is just really, really undervalued. And, I see a trajectory where if tokenized treasuries alone go from 9 billion to, let's say, 100 billion in a few years, platforms like Ondo that have the first mover advantage should be very, very solid, in due time. Now, two cryptos that I did not list on here, I just want to mention that these are two L1s that are actually RWA and institutional rails as well. They're both Ethereum and Avalanche. I would not sleep on either one of those, but I don't want to spend a ton of time on those because, I wanted to kind of deep dive into a couple other of these projects. Now, the next one I want to talk about is Algorand, and then we'll get to XRP. Now, Algorand's chart looks absolutely terrible. Let's just be real. But it is super well positioned in the RWA tokenization space and the regulated financial rails. It's been here for years, and it has a framework that is widely used already for tokenized securities and real world assets. So I think it could be undervalued because there's not a lot of retail hype here compared to its actual regulatory friendly positioning and the use of Algorand and its tools by enterprise grade companies. So if RWA tokenization, again, is going to become a multi-trillion-dollar market with strong compliance flavor, chains like Algorand have a really good chance, right, to see a second life. And that's why I'm looking at this as a high quality bet. So we'll get into XRP, XRPL. I mean, obviously, there's a ton to get in here with tokenization, with cross-border settlements. But as I mentioned, Ondo's already bringing tokenized U.S. Treasuries to the XRPL. This is backed by BlackRock, and it effectively, what this is doing, it's turning the XRPL into a fast settlement rail for on-chain T-bills and dollar stablecoins. This is massive long term. And so when we, think about this, if institutions want cheap, fast, compliant cross-border flows, which is the whole use case for why blockchain and what XRP brings to the table with Ripple, it's why it's relevant. And they want the ability to park liquidity in on-chain treasuries between transfers, and they have the partnership with Ondo. XRPL is going to be the obvious candidate here. Now, there is still some regulatory overhang. It's much lower than before, right? But U.S. policy shifts still matter, right? And so there is some risk, like there is with every investment. And by the way, none of this is financial advice, right? We don't have a crystal ball here, but I'm going to say that XRP is very undervalued at these price levels, given where we could potentially go from here. So we went over XRP, we went over Chainlink, we went over Ondo and Algorand. I do want to get into Hbar as well, but quickly, I want to tell you guys about iTrust Capital and take a listen. Quick shout out to today's sponsor, iTrust Capital, guys, the #1 crypto IRA platform in America. If you're stacking Bitcoin, you're stacking ETH or gold, silver, but you're not doing it inside a tax-advantaged IRA, you're leaving money on the table. iTrust Capital lets you trade crypto 24/7 inside your retirement account with no monthly fees and simple, transparent pricing. The setup takes just minutes. Your assets stay with institutional-grade custody partners, and you keep more of your gains long-term thanks to the tax benefits. So if you're serious about building wealth, use my link down below. Start your crypto IRA today with iTrust Capital. And for my viewers only, you will get a $100 deposit bonus when you sign up today. All right, the iTrust Capital link down below, guys, if you're interested in that. But finally, I want to talk about Hbar. And this is where we come into enterprise RWA tokenization and compliance. So they are specifically marketed, Hedera is, as an enterprise grade ready platform, meaning it is ready for tokenization. And we already have real world institutions here like Lloyd's Bank, which have used Hedera already for RWA tokenization. And there's a partnership right now with Tokeny to let institutions onboard assets in just a few weeks with compliant tokenization tools. Easy, simple. And the reasons why I think it could be undervalued, if the market realizes what Hedera is and that it's essentially, boring pipes for banks and asset managers, not just another DAG L1, meme coin, this valuation could get re-related around enterprise fee flows. And I really think this next big wave in the altcoin market, you've got to position yourself in the right place. And to me, that's front running the institutions, getting out ahead of the AI narrative, getting out ahead of the RWA narrative. Those three things. Write that down. Don't forget that. It's also positioned as a bridge to the Ethereum RWA ecosystem as well. It's not in competition with them. It's a bridge. So those are a number of reasons why I think Hedera could also be undervalued, and why all of these assets that we've just went over in the video could be ones to keeping a close eye on. I appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you guys so much. If you gained some value here, let me know in the comments. Let me know by hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, putting notifications on, all that great stuff. And of course, we'll be back for more right here. Thank you guys so much for watching again, and we'll see you all in the next video.